Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Hello everyone and welcome back to another live stream with me, Grizzly. This is Grizzly True Crime, and today we are here to watch the press conference, see a little bit from inside the courtroom for once, when Rex Heuermann, who was the suspected Long Island serial killer, now is, he pleaded guilty, right, to all the charges. There were 7 murder charges, but then he also added an extra one. He confessed to an 8th murder. This was huge news in the case. It actually happened. We were all wondering, is he going to change his mind on April 8th of 2026, or is he going to go ahead with that? Oh, he went ahead. So we're going to be getting all caught up on all of that. I have a picture here of shame and all of the victims. We're going to even see District Attorney Ray Tierney's press conference too. Let me just quickly show you this. Hold on one second. So thinking of the victims and their families, right? I'm so glad that justice was served for them. I don't, with Rex Heuermann pleading guilty, that they don't have to sit through probably 3 months of a trial and hearing horrendous evidence. So Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, Sandra Costilla, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and then the 8th murder that Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to is Karen Vergata's murder. Wow, so that was unexpected. Now, I do quickly want to show you something. Just hold on one second. I just want to get everything oriented. I want to show you that in case you missed it, I did a video in case you would like to know a little more, about the timeline. And so I did an overview of that 12 days ago. This one, expected to plead guilty. Suspected serial killer Rex Heuermann expected to plead guilty. That video. If you didn't see that, it's on the Lisk playlist. So it's called Lisk Suspect Rex Heuermann. The playlist will be linked in the description box for you, okay? So make sure you check that out. Now I'm first going to show you this, which is the document that was sent today to the media on email. So here we go. Are you ready? Thank you so much all for being here. I really appreciate it. If you are watching live with me, then you'll know we just completed a full trial day, and here we are together because we absolutely have to follow this massive news in this case together right here, right now. Okay, so out of the District Attorney County of Suffolk, Raymond A. Tierney. Sorry, this is still, the little coffees are still on here. Thank you so much, Obby's House, for coffees. I really appreciate it. I'm actually going to quickly remove this. It doesn't distract us. Just hold on one second. I really appreciate you all supporting the work that I do. All right, so this says for immediate release, April 8th of 2026, contact Emily O'Neill. It says Gilgo serial killer pleads guilty to 7 charged murders and also admits to the killing of Karen Vergata. Heuermann is expected to be sentenced to 3 consecutive sentences of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for killing Melissa Barthelemy, Waterman, and Amber Costello. Damn, 3 consecutive, hey? LWOP. Times 3 consecutive for those. Heuermann is also expected to be sentenced to a consecutive sentence of 100 years to life imprisonment for killing Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Jessica Taylor, Sandra Costilla, and Valerie Mack. Wow. I actually want to, before I get into, this is a 5-page document, and it's just summarizes everything, right? Which we've gone over quite a bit before. We can get back to this. I do want to show you probably what you are here to see would be him speaking in the courtroom, right? Oh my word, like he actually went ahead and pleaded guilty. So let's have a look here. Here we go. Okay, ready? They did show some footage because we didn't see it before. They don't have cameras in the courtroom in New York until today. Now we can see some of this.
The court is in receipt of numerous applications from media and press agencies seeking permission to video record and or photograph today's proceedings. The court is mindful of the significant public interest in this matter and the important role of the press in ensuring transparency and public access to judicial process. At the same time, the court must ensure full compliance with the New York law governing media coverage of court proceedings, and the court is duty-bound to safeguard the integrity of these proceedings. The court has been made aware that the defendant may enter a guilty plea here today, which was probably the worst kept secret in this building in the last couple of days. Under applicable law and rules, audiovisual coverage, including video recording and still photography, is prohibited during portions of the proceeding in which a sworn testimony is taken. Relevant to here, a defendant's plea allocution constitutes testimonial evidence as it involves sworn statements made by a defendant admitting to the facts underlying the charges. Accordingly, the court will permit limited media access as follows. One pool video camera news from News 12, one pool still photographer from Newsday will be allowed to record and photograph the proceedings up to, but not including, the commencement of the defendant's plea allocution. At the point where the defendant is sworn and begins allocuting the charges, all audiovisual coverage must cease, and the court will direct the court officers to escort the two camera persons out of the well. The court has conferenced this matter with counsels to both parties and with representatives of the two press agencies as to the limited scope of coverage of this proceeding. Both counsels, is this your understanding, first of all, yes?
It is.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and do you have any objections to what I've just said?
We don't take a position.
We don't take a position either, Your Honor. Thank you.
Both camera persons, Mr. Ryan and Mr. Carbone, have been expressly advised that they are under order of the court to immediately disseminate the videos and photographs that are obtained herein to any and all members of accredited media agencies upon their request. Like any other case, no one else here or in the overflow courtroom is permitted to film, tape, audio record, photograph, or otherwise record today's proceedings. This determination reflects the court's effort to balance the public's right of access with the legal requirement prohibiting coverage of testimonial proceedings, as well as the need to preserve the fairness, dignity, and orderly administration of justice. All right, gentlemen, I understand that circumstances have changed in this case.
Just a little bit, hey? Circumstances have changed. Yeah. A serial killer is pleading guilty. Oh my goodness. I wonder why do you think he did it? I actually asked you on my community tab. Why do you think that Rex Heuermann decided to plead guilty? Do you think somebody said it's because his health is failing him? Okay. Somebody said because maybe he thinks then his wife could, I don't know, do more documentaries and get more money. I don't know. Somebody said that it could be because he was writing back to that Keith Jesperson convicted serial killer, right? And Keith Jesperson advised him, just admit to it, just own it, dude. So maybe he took that advice. But why do you think that he's decided to do this, right? Anyway, so let's have a look. We're going to watch, so just firstly, you could expand the description box. You could see a case background write-up, although you can't really summarize it just in the description box. There's a link to the playlist. Go find the deep dives there. I've done plenty of timeline presentations, deep dives, map time, all of that, right, in this case. So let's see now what the state and the defense will say before Rex Heuermann says a few things too and pleads guilty.
Correct, Your Honor.
People?
Your Honor, it is the understanding of the District Attorney's Office that the defendant will plead guilty to 7 counts in the indictment, specifically counts 1 through 3 and counts 7 through 10. Counts 4.
I don't need to interrupt. Should we bring the defendant out, please?
Bring the defendant out now.
That's a very good idea. Thank you, Mr.
Usually helps to have a defendant.
Oh, shame. Okay, here comes the ogre. Rex Heuermann wasn't in the courtroom and they were ready to go. They're like, let's just do this. Here we go. Here he comes.
When you need him uncuffed, just let me know.
Sorry?
When you need him uncuffed, just let me know.
Okay.
This would have been an epic trial to watch in person. You know? Can you imagine? These two the defense, this attorney, Michael Brown, and District Attorney Ray Tierney, battling it out in the courtroom. Can you imagine? But I'm glad. I'm glad with this outcome. Are you?
Coming out, Judge.
On the record with number 8, Rex Heuermann.
We're going to do the waivers first, okay? For the defendant, Michael Brown, 320 Carlton Avenue, Central High Street, New York. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Brown. As I was beginning to say, it is the understanding of the District Attorney's Office that the defendant will plead guilty to 7 counts in the indictment, specifically counts 1 through 3 and counts 7 through 10. Counts 4 through 6 will be dismissed in satisfaction at the time of the defendant's sentencing. In addition to allocuting to and admitting his factual guilt to all elements of counts 1 through 3 and 7 through 10 of the indictment, the defendant further agrees that although he has not been charged with this crime, he will admit as part of his plea that he intentionally caused the death of Karen Vergata and transported and left her remains in Suffolk County in 1996. The District Attorney's Office agrees that in exchange for the defendant pleading guilty to counts 1 through 3 and counts 7 through 10 of the indictment and admitting to the uncharged murder of Karen Vergata, the District Attorney's Office recommends the following sentence. Counts 1 through 3, murder in the first degree, the maximum sentence of life imprisonment without parole to run consecutive to each other. Counts 7 through 10, the maximum sentence of 25 years to life imprisonment to run consecutive to one another, and with the sentences on counts 1 through 3. To summarize the foregoing sentence, the defendant agrees to serve 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole regarding counts 1 through 3, followed by 4 consecutive sentences of 25 years imprisonment to life to run consecutive to one another. Should the defendant allocute to the murder of Karen Vergata, the defendant's guilty plea and this plea agreement will satisfy and cover the uncharged homicide of Karen Vergata. In exchange for all of the above pleas, there will be no further prosecutions pertaining to the murders of the aforementioned 8 victims: Karen Vergata, Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor, Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Sandra Costilla. The defendant will acknowledge both orally and in writing that he has received voluminous and sufficient discovery to make an informed decision regarding his plea here today. The defendant will further waive any objections to the District Attorney's compliance with Article 245 of the Criminal Procedure Law. The defendant has also agreed to withdraw all motions currently pending before this court. As set forth in the written waiver of right to appeal, the defendant agrees to waive his right to appeal, which includes the court's prior hearing determination, as well as any claim that the sentence imposed by this court is excessive. The defendant further acknowledges that he's been fully apprised by his attorneys of the rights and privileges that he is waiving, and that his waiver is being agreed to knowingly and voluntarily and made for the purpose of receiving the benefit of not being charged with the murder of Karen Vergata or any other charges related to the deaths of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Sandra Costilla, Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor, and Sandra Costilla. Finally, counts 4, 5, and 6 will be dismissed in satisfaction at the time of sentencing. And I believed in the beginning, with regard to the 8 victims, I inadvertently left out Sandra Costilla.
Mr. Brown?
Judge, can he be uncuffed for a moment?
Oh boy, they're going to uncuff Rex Heuermann. Wow, and by the way, that was on normal speed. I had to check 3 times. I'm like, is that normal speed? District Attorney Ray Tierney speaks quite fast, hey? I mean, it is New York after all, okay? But, okay, here we go. Rex Heuermann.
Just to sign certain documents.
Sarge?
Yes, Judge. All right, Rex, I'm going to sign this. I'm going to sign right here, please. This is the waiver of discovery right here. And then,
He's left-handed.
Not yet.
let's do this right here. Thank you. Okay. That's it, thank you. Judge, that's our understanding. We join the application.
Thank you. Mr. Heuermann, before I swear you in, and the elocution is taken, I have some questions to ask of you. They're obvious and simple questions, but I have to ask them, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are you?
62.
Do you read and write English?
Yes.
Have you discussed this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
Have you had enough time to discuss this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorney's represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
Damn, now we're hearing his voice again. Last time we heard he was talking about his favorite tool being a cabinet maker's hammer. Do you remember that little interview? Mm-hmm. Looking smug, huh? Wow.
Let's say that the attorneys on both sides of this case have been excellent. Unbelievable lawyers. Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a charge, that is the same as if you had gone to trial and been found guilty of that charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving a number of very important rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, now these rights include your right to a trial by jury or by the court, your right to have the prosecution produce evidence and witnesses to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, your right to cross-examine those witnesses, and your right to testify on your own behalf or to remain silent, your right to call witnesses or submit evidence on your behalf. Do you understand those rights as I've just explained them?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up those rights?
Yes, I do.
All right, now a defendant ordinarily retains the right to appeal even after pleading guilty. In this case, however, as a condition of the plea agreement, you are asked to waive your right to appeal. An appeal is a proceeding before another court, and if a defendant cannot afford the cost of an appeal or of a lawyer, the state will bear those costs. On an appeal, the defendant may, normally through his or her lawyer, argue that an error took place in this court, which required a modification or a reversal of the conviction. A reversal would require either new proceedings in this court or a dismissal. By waiving your right to appeal, you do not give up your right to take an appeal. But if you take an appeal, you are by this plea, and now separately by this waiver of the right to appeal, giving up the right to have the appellate court consider those claims of error, including, for example, rulings on evidence, discovery, suppression, and any pretrial motions, and whether this sentence is harsh or excessive and should be modified. You understand that?
Yes, I
And your
do.
attorney's explained this to you?
Yes, he
And
has.
Mr. Brown, may I ask you at this point, are you, with respect to the motion pending,
We're going to withdraw that motion.
application granted,
Thank you.
are you willing to waive your right to appeal in this case in return for the plea and sentence agreement?
Yes.
Do you waive your right to appeal voluntarily of your own free will?
Yes, I do.
Or are you entering this plea bargain voluntarily of your own free will?
Yes, I am.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or coerced you into pleading guilty?
No.
Are you under the influence of any drugs, medication, or alcohol right now?
No.
Are you under the influence of any substance which has impaired your ability to think clearly or understand what's going on here today?
No.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving any defenses you may have to this case?
Yes, I do.
Now, do you understand, again, an obvious question, but I have to ask it. Do you understand that as a result of this plea and sentence, you will be convicted of a felony and that such conviction will result in an enhanced sentence if you are convicted of a felony in the future? Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
All right. Mr. Brown, again, another silly question, but have you received a sufficient amount of discovery in this matter?
We certainly have to.
The people, have you provided that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Now, my promise is to sentence you in a manner that is conditional. At the time of your sentencing, I will be provided with a pre-sentence report and perhaps additional information about you and your alleged involvement in this matter. If after reviewing all the relevant information, I learned something which tells me that I cannot in good conscience keep my promise, I shall permit you to withdraw your plea of guilty, reinstate your plea of not guilty, and the case will proceed to trial. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Additionally, my promise is also conditional on the following things. You must cooperate with the probation department. You must not be arrested for any offense in this or any other jurisdiction. Finally, you must appear on the date I set for sentencing or any adjourned date. If you fail to abide by any of these conditions, I will not be bound by my sentencing promise to you, and you will not be permitted to withdraw your guilty plea. Further, I'll be at liberty to sentence you to any appropriate sentence, including the maximum sentence allowed by law. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Now, other than the promise that was placed on the record by the people, has anyone, myself, your lawyer, the prosecutor, or anyone else made any promises to you in return for your plea of guilty?
The only thing I want to interject, Judge, Mr. Tierney has indicated in exchange for the pleas that we're going to enter into this morning, there'll be no further prosecutions on the 8 victims that he's referenced. He is also, my client is also obligated to completely, truthfully, and fairly cooperate with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Behavioral Analysis Unit as part of what we've just discussed,
Any other promises made to you?
other than what I've just said.
He's like, mention the real butter, or what?
No.
Are you pleading guilty voluntarily and of your own free will?
Yes.
All right, we're going to swear in the defendant now.
And that's it. That was what they showed to the public, right? Catch Lisk Raoul, if you are still here, thank you firstly for being here with us. You know a lot about the case and in some epic map time. Tell me if there's another clip that I should be showing of him. I think this is it, right? Now we're going to see the press conference as well, but that happened after this. Like, sure, but he definitely is looking pretty impressed with himself. Am I right? He is looking a bit smug, which is so disgusting. He is such a... He's a serial killer, a torturer, a dismemberer, you know? Like, his MO is so frightening. So, if you don't know much about the case, there's a whole playlist to deep dive, as I say. The crimes that he's now The murders that he's pleaded guilty to were committed between 1993 and 2010. I will say it every time. I still want to know what the hell he did between 2010 and 2023. He was arrested June 13th of 2023. Am I right? June 13th, I think it was, of 2023. What did he do between 2010 and 2023? Also, what happened to his teeth while he's been in jail? Because it looks like a couple of them fell out, right? Oh, Cashler said we saw more in court, but the elocution was not streamed. Okay. Well, if you have anything to share, do tell us in chat. Thank you so much. Oh, you were there in person. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you quickly before we watch the press conference is, let's get this going. All right, so this is where we were, and you could see April 8th of 2026, Gilgo serial killer pleads, so Long Island serial killer, lisk, pleads guilty to 7 charged murders and also admits to the killing of Karen Vergata. Heuermann is expected to be sentenced, as we read this earlier, 3 consecutive sentences of LWOP. We've read this top part right earlier, so I'm just going to move ahead here. Suffolk County, New York. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney today announced that Rex A. Heuermann, 62, of Massapequa Park, pleaded guilty to 3 counts of murder in the first degree and 4 counts of murder in the second degree for causing the deaths of the 7 victims previously referenced by the indictment. We've gone over those documents together, right? As well as admitting publicly, as part of his allocution, to killing an 8th victim, Karen Vergata. Wait, I have to put the picture up again. There we go. Okay. I wish I could make it a bit bigger, you know? How about this? Like this? Okay. So it says, according to court documents and the defendant's admissions during his guilty plea allocution, on or about and in between November 19th of 1993 and November 20th of 1993, the defendant met with Sandra Costilla. After picking up Ms. Costilla, the defendant subsequently strangled her. Okay, so trigger warning as well. Oh my word. Here we go. We can put this over here. He said that he strangled her, causing her death. Subsequently, the defendant transported and left the remains of Miss Costilla in the vicinity of Fish Cove Road in North Sea, town of Southampton, Suffolk County, until she was ultimately discovered by hunters on November 20th of 1993. At the time of her death, Miss Costilla was just 28 years old and survived by her son, who was approximately 5 years old. Shame. In April of 1996, Heuermann met with Karen Vergata. After picking up Miss Vergata, this is now, okay, Karen Vergata. Yes, this is the 8th one that he pleaded guilty to today, which no one actually expected. Let's say a month ago. I don't think anyone expected he was going to do that. Cashless said, I truly love all of those families. They are just incredible people. Seeing Karen's son was just heartbreaking. Ooh, I could just imagine. Oh my word. Thank you so much for sharing that. So here he says, after picking up, so this is now brand new information, okay? After picking up Miss Vergata, the defendant subsequently strangled her, causing her death. Following her death, Miss Vergata was dismembered by Heuermann, who then transported her remains to various locations. On April 20th of 1996, the severed legs of Miss Vergata were discovered on Blue Point Beach in the town of Brookhaven in Suffolk County. Almost 15 years later, on April 12th of 2011, as part of the expanded search of the Gilgo Beach area, Miss Vergata's skull was recovered on Ocean Parkway in the vicinity of Tobay Beach. Prior to identification in 2023 by a genetic genealogy, Miss Vergata had been referred to as Fire Island Jane Doe. At the time of her death, Miss Vergata was just 34 years old and left behind 2 sons. On or about and in between September 1st, by the way, this document's 5 pages, just because I know some of these documents have been so long. We're on page 2 out of 5. We're going to read the 5 pages. Then we're going to watch the press conference. So it says, on or about between September 1st of 2000 and November 19th of 2000, Heuermann met with Valerie Mack. After picking up Miss Mack, the defendant subsequently strangled her, causing her death. Following her death, Miss Mack was dismembered by Heuermann, who then transported her remains to 2 locations, Manival and Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. On November 19th, 2000, 3 hunters discovered a black plastic bag approximately 1 mile west of Halsey Manor Road and north of Mill Road in Manival. Alright, inside they observed a decapitated set of human remains, which were later identified as those of Valerie Mack. Over 10 years later, on April 4th of 2011, as part of the expanded search of the Gilgo Beach area, the skull and hands and right foot of Valerie Mack were discovered along Ocean Parkway, just east of Gilgo Beach in Suffolk County. Prior to her identification in 2020 by a genetic genealogy, Miss Mack had been referred to as Jane Doe number 6. At the time of her death, Miss Mack was just 24 years old and survived by her adoptive parents and her son, whose name was tattooed near her right ankle. Cashless said during his allocution he admitted to strangling all 8 victims. Oh my word. On or about, I'm so glad we can read this as well because it's a good recap of everything as well as new information. On or about and between July 21st of 2003 and July 26th of 2003, Heuermann met with Jessica Taylor. After picking up Miss Taylor, the defendant subsequently strangled her, causing her death. Following her death, Miss Taylor was dismembered by Heuermann, who then transported her remains to 2 locations, Manaville and Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. On July 26th of 2003, Miss Taylor's remains were discovered just west of Halsey Manor Road in Manaville. Notably, the victim's arms, hands, and head had been severed from her body and were missing from the remains recovered at the scene. Nearly 8 years later, on March 29th of 2011, as part of the expanded search of the Gilgo Beach area, the victim's skull, hands, and forearm were discovered along Ocean Parkway, just east of Gilgo Beach in Suffolk County. At the time of her death, Miss Taylor was just 20 years old and survived by her mother. In July 2007, after seeing an online advertisement, Heuermann utilized a burner phone to arrange to meet with Maureen Brainard-Barnes. On the night of July 9th of 2007, Heuermann picked up Miss Brainard-Barnes and subsequently strangled her, causing her death. Following her death, Heuermann secured the remains of Miss Brainard-Barnes with 3 belts and transported the victim to Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. Over 3 years later, on December 13th of 2010, Miss Brainard-Barnes' remains were discovered on the north side of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. At the time of her death, Maureen Brainard-Barnes was just 25 years old and survived by her 2 children, her sister and her brother, as well as her mother. By the way, this sounds, they're summarizing. Like, he picked up the victim, strangled them, dismembered them, but there's so much more than that. This guy was a highly sadistic torturer. Just even based on his internet searches alone, we can tell that, right? Just how his planning document, oh my goodness. If you don't know about that, check out the playlist. On July 10th of 2009, after seeing an online advertisement for her services, Heuermann utilized a burner phone to arrange to meet with Melissa Barthelemy. That evening, Heuermann picked up Miss Barthelemy and ultimately strangled her, causing her death. Following her death, Heuermann tied up the remains of Miss Barthelemy with tape and burlap. Subsequently, the defendant transported the victim's remains to Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. Over a year later, on December 11th of 2010, Miss Barthelemy's remains were discovered on the north side of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. At the time of her death, Miss Barthelemy was just 24 years old and survived by her sister, her mother, and stepfather. On June 6th of 2010, Heuermann utilized a burner phone to arrange to meet with Megan Waterman. That evening, Heuermann picked up Miss Waterman from the Holiday Inn we've got a local challenge now to say the name. Wait, you guys have taught me before. Hauppauge. Ooh, did I say it right? And subsequently strangled the victim, causing her death. Following her death, Heuermann tied up the remains of Miss Waterman with tape and burlap and then transported the victim's remains to Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. Just over 6 months later, on December 13th of 2010, Miss Waterman's remains were discovered on the north side of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. At the time of her death, Miss Waterman was just 22 years old and survived by her daughter, mother, and grandmother. Finally, on September 2nd of 2010, after a ruse that occurred the night prior had disrupted Heuermann's encounter with Miss Costello, Heuermann utilized a burner phone to arrange to once again meet with Amber Costello. Oh man, that evening Heuermann picked up Miss Costello from her residence in West Babylon and subsequently strangled her, causing her death. Following her death, Heuermann tied up the remains of Miss Costello with tape and burlap and then transported her remains to Ocean Parkway, Gilgo Beach. On December 13th of 2010, Miss Costello's remains were discovered on the north side of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. At the time of her death, Miss Costello was just 27 years old and survived by her sister. Following a long-term investigation, the defendant was arrested. There you go, on July 13th of 2023. Heuermann is due back in court for sentencing. There, write that down, everybody, on your Grizzly calendars. June 17th of 2026, where he is expected to be sentenced to 3 consecutive sentences for life without the possibility of parole for killing Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. Heuermann is also expected to be sentenced to a consecutive sentence of 100 years to life imprisonment for killing Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Jessica Taylor, Sandra Costilla, and Valerie Mack, in exchange for Heuermann's admission to the murder of Karen Vergata. This additional murder is covered by Heuermann's plea to the murders of the 7 charged victims. Okay. Heuermann is represented by attorneys Michael J. Brown, Esquire, Daniel Koch, sorry about that, Sabato Capone. This case is being prosecuted by Assistant District Attorneys Nicholas J. Santomartino, Andrew Lee, Michelle Haddad, Lawrence Opiso, and Alan L. Bode under the leadership and direct supervision of Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond A. Tierney. I had the opportunity to interview him, which you can also find on the playlist. The investigation, not now. I mean, it was like probably a year ago at this point, but that was epic. Okay, so check that out. The investigation was led by the Gilgo Homicide Task Force, which includes members of the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, Suffolk County Police Department's Homicide Squad, New York State Police, the FBI, and Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. The Gilgo Homicide Task Force also extends its sincere appreciation to the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's Office, the Suffolk County Crime Lab, the Identification Section of the Suffolk County Police Department, the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, Astria Forensics, Mitotyping Technologies, and the United States Secret Service for their integral assistance in this investigation and prosecution. Nate said, I just cannot imagine those poor victims. He's huge. They were all so small and petite. I know, right? Yeah, so that's the document. Now, are we ready to have a look at the press conference that happened after what we just saw, which was him pleading guilty? Just hold on, I've got to find it. There we go. That's the one. Okay, here we go. I'm going to just move things around a little bit quickly. There we go. Okay. And you know what? Grizzlies, remember, if you've been here for a while, then you'll know all along the way, we've been asking District Attorney Ray Tierney to please stream it on his own channel. Please, sir. Stream it on your own channel, okay? Not on Instagram. Because he used to do his live streams on Instagram, and then it would be that like vertical format, and then you couldn't like go back if you're just a few minutes behind or whatever. So he's done it. This is on his own channel. Okay, so I'll link his channel again if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll put it in the description box afterwards. So thank you to all of you who have subscribed, because there needs to be a minimum amount. That's what he said initially. People need to subscribe for him to qualify to be able to live stream. That's true, that's true. And then all the Grizzlies went over there, and I'm just so glad that he was able to stream it on YouTube now. That's awesome. Mel said, you are so appreciated, Gizla. Thank you so much. All right, so here we go. This is District Attorney Ray Tierney. This is the press conference that followed right after the guilty plea that Rex Heuermann made. Not a plea deal. He decided to plead guilty. Okay.
When in reality, all along, he was obsessively...
And it literally just starts. Wait, it just starts. Okay, wait. Excuse me, sir. Back. Here we go.
Does he yes?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon. Thanks, everyone, for coming. This defendant walked among us, play acting as a normal suburban dad, when in reality, all along, he was obsessively targeting innocent women for death. He identified these women, lured them into Nassau County, murdered them, and left their bodies in Suffolk County. He thought that by killing them, he could silence them forever and get away with murder. But he was wrong, because it was these victims, these women, who refused to stay silent. First, that silence was broken by the victims' families, who advocated for their loved ones and agitated for justice. Then the noise grew louder through the ensuing investigation and examination of the evidence that the defendant left at or around the crime scenes, as well as on the bodies of the women themselves, that further told the stories of these victims and what had actually happened to them. It was this evidence that ultimately was put together by the task force that proved to be the defendant's undoing and led to the pleas of guilt in today's court proceeding. And it is in this way that these murders were solved. And while we in law enforcement, as well as our Suffolk County citizens, mourn the loss of these victims, we are also grateful to them and to their families, because without them, this defendant would have never been brought to justice and would still be walking amongst us. and he would still be portraying himself as that same harmless father next door instead of what he is, a convicted murderer. Ultimately, this case is really about these victims and their stories. It is not about this defendant. And I speak for everyone in law enforcement, and when I say we are honored and thankful for being able to have played a small role in obtaining a small measure of justice for these families. For decades, this case stood out as a painful scar on the face of Suffolk County law enforcement, Suffolk County government, the citizens of Suffolk County, and the victims' families as well. However, with the defendant's pleas of guilt today, it means that for the first time since the deaths of these women, we can turn to all of these same people and say, Rex Heuermann will be held responsible for the 1993 murder of Sandra Costilla, the 1996 murder of Karen Vergata, the 2000 murder of Valerie Mack, the 2003 murder of Jessica Taylor, the 2007 murder of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, the 2009 murder of Melissa Barthelemy, the June 2009 murder of Megan Waterman, and the September 2010 murder of Ms. Costello. Despite this tragedy, there's a lot of different emotions, and I guess the word for today, despite the tragedy, despite all those emotions, is thankfulness. We are thankful. We have a lot to be thankful for, despite these emotions. First and foremost, we are thankful for the victims and the victims' families who told their stories, their loved ones' stories, and defended their loved ones' legacies. Without them, we would have never truly gotten to know those victims. My start in this case occurred before I took office. A homicide detective with the Suffolk County PD, Pat Portella, gave my phone number to Melissa and Amanda. Melissa is, of course, Maureen Brainard-Barnes' sister, and Amanda is Melissa Barthelemy's sister. And they spoke with me. We had a really good phone conversation. And during that phone conversation, I heard the pain and frustration in their voices. They wanted answers. They wanted closure. I told them that we were going to do things differently. It was going to be a new manner of doing things. First and foremost, we were going to form a task force, and we were going to bring all of the talents of all these people standing here to bear, and we were going to work together. We were going to not use this case as a political football to be kicked into the news stream on slow days or whenever it suited the political leader's purpose. We were going to be quiet. We were going to pretend as though it was business as usual in Suffolk County. And the reason why we were going to do that was because we knew what we were doing. We were playing to an audience of one. And that one person, of course, was the murderer. We wanted to lure that individual into a false sense of security. We wanted him to think he got away with this. And that was exactly what we did. And the reason why we wanted to do that is because when we solved this case and we had those arrest warrants and executed those search warrants, we wanted more evidence, and that's exactly what we got. So we were thankful for that. We were thankful we were able to bring this case to a close, but it started, our inspiration was these victims and their families. But those families were so much more to us. Through them, we truly got to know these victims. When we started, the victims were nothing but names on a blotter, black and white, writing on investigative reports. But once we spoke to the victims, they provided us with the color of these women, and we got to know them as the wonderful mothers, sisters, friends, and daughters that they were. And that inspired us even more to close this case, to come to a resolution. So again, first and foremost, we are thankful for those families. And I just want to individually, mention all of the families. The Brainard-Barnes family, I already spoke with Melissa, but I want to thank Melissa and her husband Chris and their children, Marie, who is Maureen's mom, Nicolette and Dylan, who are Maureen's two children. We want to thank them for their support, not only of Maureen, but for our investigation as well. And we want to say, on behalf of Suffolk County, we're sorry. The Barthelemy family, Amanda, who's Melissa's sister, Lynn, her mom, and Jeff, Lynn's partner. We want to thank them as well. When this case started, it started with the grand. Well, it didn't start, but the charging started with the grand jury, and Amanda, Lynn, and Melissa came down and helped us with the grand jury. And I remember when Lynn came in, it was about 2-day proceeding, and when Lynn first walked in, she appeared a certain way, and by the end of that second day, she looked completely different. You could see that having forced her to relive this, you could see the sadness in her face and in her eyes, and we're sorry for that. But without their cooperation, we wouldn't be here today. So to Amanda, Lynn, Jeff, and everyone in the Barthelemy family, we want to say thank you, and we want to say we're sorry. To the Waterman family, we have Megan's aunt, Liz, and we have her daughter, Lily. We want to thank them. We didn't get to know them until after the indictment, but again, the way that they stood by Megan and the way they supported us, we want to say to them, thank you, and we're sorry. To Amber Costello and her family, specifically Amber's sister Kim, we want to say thank you, and again, thank you for the support, and again, we're sorry for the loss of Amber. Valerie Mack, we met shortly before the indictment. We met Ed and Joanne Mack. Ed and Joanne Mack were foster parents and then the adopted parents of Valerie, and they gave Valerie the only happy home she ever knew, and really the only support she probably ever knew in her life. Meeting with them, they're incredibly special people. They're heroes. We also got to know Valerie's sister Angela and her son Aaron. Again, equally wonderful people. So to them, we want to say thank you, and we're sorry. Jessica Taylor, we got to know Jessica's mom, Liz, after the indictment. Prior to the indictment, we got to know Jessica's cousin, Jasmine. And right after the initial indictment of the first 3 victims, Jasmine came to us on behalf of Liz and said, please help us. Please find out what happened to Jessica. And at that time, we didn't have enough. And we said, look, we're going to work and we're going to try to get there, and we're going to work as hard as we can. Please trust us. And, Jasmine, on behalf of Liz, said they would do just that. So to Jasmine and Liz, I want to say thank you. And again, we're sorry. To the Vergata family, Karen Vergata, we recently went, I know members of the Suffolk County PD had already spoken to the family, but my team recently went and we saw Eric and Gary, who are Karen's sons. Gary's not here today, but we got to meet Gary, and I know Gary's watching, so we want to say hello to Gary. Eric's here. We want to thank Eric. And again, we want to thank you and tell them how much we admire them for supporting their mom and for supporting us. And again, we want to say we're sorry. On behalf of all of Suffolk County, we're sorry for Karen's passing. The Costilla family, Sandra Costilla, we had the opportunity shortly before the indictment to meet with Ariel, who's the husband of Ruth, and Ruth is Sandra's sister. Again, wonderful people who really stood by and supported Sandra. So we want to thank them for that. We want to thank them for their support of our investigation. And on behalf of Suffolk County, we want to tell them we're sorry. We're sorry. So that's the family. Again, they inspired us. They're the reason why we do what we do. Today was a very special day for us in law enforcement. because it gave us the opportunity to turn to these victims and their families and say, listen, we told you we were going to work really hard. We told you we were going to do everything we can to bring closure to you. And that's why we work in law enforcement. And, we were able to do that to a small measure today. So we're happy for that. And again, so thankful for them. In addition to our victims' families, we have our law enforcement family. And, this case was, brought home by a task force that brought to bear the talents of a number of really great investigators from a lot of really great agencies. And again, so thankful to be able to have worked with so many talented people. It's not really, some people will say, well, this person solved Gilgo or that person solved Gilgo. That's not it at all. It was so many different pieces from so many different people, starting back in 1993 and culminating all the way through 2021. So again, and really beyond, actually. So again, so thankful for the great work. First and foremost, I have to thank my chief investigator, Rich Zacharies. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've had the benefit of working with truly the best investigators in the country and in the world. Rich is the finest investigator I've ever worked for and worked with. I do sometimes feel as though I work for him. But he was the architect of our grand jury. He put together our grand jury. And I think there's, whether it's an attorney or an investigator, I think there are very few people who could have done that logistically. And so to Rich, I want to say thank you. To our detective investigators, our analysts, again, all great. And I'm gonna mention a lot of people, and it's gonna, because it's not exciting to mention a lot of people, but they deserve mention. So I'm gonna mention them. We're gonna go through everyone, but not everyone, but a lot of people. We're gonna talk about our phone experts, Justin Doolittle and John Primiano. Unbelievable work in this case and so many others. Our analysts, Kaylee Homer, Erin Hansen. Unbelievable work combing through this evidence, this miles of evidence. And that's just to name a few. They're indicative of so many more. Our law enforcement partners, we had our DA people, our PD, our FBI, our New York State Police, our Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, our core people, Rory Forrestall, a DI. I hired Rory. He was supposed to come in and help us with our child abuse section, but he got waylaid in here, and he worked like heck for us and did a great job. We're so thankful for Rory. For Suffolk County PD, our homicide guys who are still with the task force today, Chris Calvaca and Scott Aquilina, great individuals, great investigators. Thank you so much, Chris, Scott. We had Jimmy Watson who worked with us, no longer with us.
I was going to pause here quickly. Do you remember when the special task force was formed? Oh my goodness, we watched that press conference together. I think that's when I started covering this case on my YouTube channel. And it was Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison who announced that they had formed a special task force and they were looking at this case and they would like to get this solved. And it was just amazing to see the work that they did, right? So everything is on the playlist if you just want to catch up on that and go back to where this all started. But to see where we are now, for me it's April 9th, okay, but April 8th of 2026, wow, what an outcome, and what a long road as well for the families of the victims. But I'm just so glad that we're here. This press conference, by the way, is an hour and 22 minutes long. Let me see if it goes all the way to the end. It does. And we're only 15 minutes in. So we're going to be here for a little while. And I really appreciate you all, especially if you watched the whole trial day with me and you're here now, holy crap. If you're one of my moderators, holy crap, thank you for being here. We've had a long day. I really, really appreciate all your support and that we can share in this news together.
He's in Nassau. FBI agent Craig Mateo, Special Agent Craig Mateo. Everybody's young, I guess, compared to me, but I see him as a young guy, really talented agent, really great guy, really, really helpful. Investigator Tiffany Attai with the State Police. Again, along with Rory, Erin, and Kaylee, really plunged into the evidence in this case and really helped us out. She was also the one who did the infamous avalanche search. So we want to thank Tiffany for all of the work and all the work that they all did. We have a number of retired task force and former law enforcement officers with us today. We invited them, and I saw John Santoro, I saw Donna Giordano, Pat Albergo, just to name a few. And we wanted to invite those retired members because, again, there was a lot of talk about this case, a lot of talk about, no one cared about the women, who were murdered in this case. That nothing could be further from the truth. I'll talk about Pat Alberga. He worked Jessica Taylor's case. He retired. When we had brought enough evidence to bring that case together, we called Pat, and he came to help us testify. Actually, he and Donna Giordano testified for us. But when Pat Albergo, who's retired, came in, he sort of walked through the door like a kid, like a little kid walking down the stairs during Christmas. And he's like, "Why am I here?" And I'm like, "Because we're going to charge this case." He was thrilled, and that attitude is indicative of every single one of all these agencies. So grateful to work with all of these people, both past and present. Our ADAs, Nick Santamartino, Andrew Lee, Michelle Haddad, Larry Opizzo, God help them, right? They get to know what I'm really like. And so they were with us right from the very beginning, through the grand jury and through today. Great job by them. I want to thank them. My chief assistant, Alan Bodie, he really, along with Rich and I, we really thought a lot about how we were going to go forward with this case and planned a lot of things, from the grand jury. And he was really helpful with that. And also, he ran the office while I was running around pretending to be a lawyer. Our discovery expediters, our analysts, our paralegals, everyone. And that's just us. So now, we come to the Suffolk County PD, and, I'll talk a lot about Suffolk County PD was, with us every step of the way. Our police commissioner Catalina, our chief of department Bill Dougherty, our chief of detectives Sean Barron, a whole host of other people are with us today. We have our Suffolk County sheriff, Errol Toulon, with us, as well as Undersheriff Kevin Heavey, as well as Undersheriff John Becker. We really want to thank those two agencies. We want to thank Errol Toulon, and we want to thank Police Commissioner Catalina. They're two phenomenal partners. I can say this about Suffolk County and Suffolk County citizens when it comes to Police Commissioner Catalina and Sheriff Toulon. You are all in wonderful company. In addition, with regard to our Sheriff's Department, they provided logistics and traffic and sex trafficking related intel throughout our interviews, helped us to identify a lot of potential interviews of inmates and other people who had been sex trafficked. So we want to thank Suffolk County Sheriff for that. With regard, we also have the FBI here. We have Special Agent in Charge Michael Raffa, who's the FBI New York Criminal Division. So Special Agent in Charge Raffa is in charge of the criminal division of the FBI in New York State. We want to thank Michael for coming in. We want to thank Supervisory Senior Resident Agent Don Osbacher, who's been with us from the very beginning. We want to thank them for lending us their expertise, and more importantly, their people. The cell phone analysis that we all heard about, that was done by the CAST, or Cellular. The FBI CAST stands for Cellular Analysis Survey Team, and specifically Special Agents Eric Perry and Mike Sabrick. Really unbelievable work by them. Eric, he provided the drive time records, so those boxes, those areas of interest in Manhattan and in Massapequa Park. That was developed because in 2011, Eric Perry drove with equipment through every single neighborhood and extensively mapped the cell phone coverage in those areas and allowed us with specificity to be able to develop these areas of interest. That had to be done in 2011. The landscape changed, the cell sites changed, after Superstorm Sandy, the geography changed. So, we went back to 2011, and that work that Eric did, and just phenomenal. So we want to thank the FBI. We want to thank Eric Perry and Mike Sabrick. They both created maps for us to use in the grand jury. They testified in the grand jury, as well as John Primiano from my office with the help of Justin Doolittle, and just great work. With regard to forensics in this case, I think I'd said earlier that IgG, investigative genetic genealogy, did not play a role in this case. I was wrong. I had forgotten that IgG was used to identify victim Valerie Mack prior to my involvement in the case. So I want to thank the FBI and Lori Giordano for that. They also, with us, helped to identify Karen Vergata. So again, thank you. FBI, they provided surveillance of the defendant, both in the city and on Long Island, and their surveillance team. I was nervous. I had never met these guys. I had worked for them, worked with them as a federal prosecutor, but that was a high-risk, high-reward thing. If they get made, everything comes down. If they get detected, but they weren't detected. Not only did they follow the defendant, but they recovered the abandonment samples. So we want to thank them. Suffolk County PD, they recovered DNA from the defendant's house. We want to thank the homicide squad for that. And again, working together, we were able to really develop that DNA evidence. So we want to thank them. Also, we provided, the FBI provided a searchable account, digitalized this entire file for us. So we want to thank the FBI for that. New York State Police, today we have Major Chris Casal, who's the troop commander of Troop L. We have Captain Chris Jean, who works in Troop L as well. Again, they provided Tiffany Attai to our task force, who was integral to our success. They provided assistance to search warrants, of all the search warrants with regard to this case in all the various locations. They were on the scene with our Suffolk County Police Department gathering evidence. They transported evidence from the house to Suffolk County property, along again with Suffolk County PD. The avalanche truck, they transported it from South Carolina to our lab. There was a Ram Charger from Pennsylvania that was associated with the Sandra Costilla case. State troopers took that from Pennsylvania, brought it to our lab. We were able to develop evidence linking that truck to the murder of Karen Vergata. We want to thank them. They provided us with K-9 units along with the NYPD, Suffolk County PD. I want to thank all of those agencies. I want to thank Nassau for helping.
I know usually you guys don't like the patting on the back, right? These type of press conferences, and it's a lot. It's like there's so much of it in this one. But can you imagine how long they've been working on all of this, right? So I understand, and we're gonna watch it, right? I mean, I do wonder how long is District Attorney Ray Tierney going to thank people? Is he going to thank them for another hour? Maybe he might. Okay, at some way later. It's not too long actually. I don't mind it. Okay, it's the exception. And then somebody else. There's going to be a few other speakers as well, and then the family members will also be speaking. So we're going to be watching that together. All right.
Us with the search warrant. We want to thank Nassau County DA's office for helping us with the prosecution of the weapons case. Our Suffolk County Crime Lab, we want to thank them. Tremendous work. I particularly, is Clyde here? Where's Clyde? Clyde, raise your hand. Where's Clyde? All right, Clyde's all the way in the back as usual, hiding. So Clyde was the hair analyst in this case. He collected hairs from all the victims in this case, save for Jessica Taylor. And he pushed the PD and he pushed our office to send certain hairs out for mitochondrial and then later nuclear DNA testing. And when we started this case, he was working with Nick Santomartino in my office, and he was recalling with great specificity certain hairs of interest that he thought were really going to bear fruit And I was talking to Nick, and I was saying, does this guy really, like, is he really, like, was he this meticulous? Is he this sure? And so Nick said, sit down with him, sit down with Clyde. And we sat down with Clyde, and, to go to a crime scene, in the 2000s and not have the capability to get nuclear DNA, but yet to be so precise and exact in gathering evidence, cataloging the evidence, safeguarding the evidence, and then being able to advocate for its use. Without Clyde, we probably wouldn't have gotten that evidence. So, Clyde's retired now, but we really want to thank Clyde. Bob Jenna, he collected hairs on the Costilla case. He recovered 2 hair. He was a former chief of Suffolk County Crime Lab. He's retired. He collected 2 hairs on Sandra Costilla. Did a great job, similar to Clyde. Don Doler, the former chief, he was the chief of the lab when we started this. Great job. We want to thank him. Connie Dinkle is the current chief of the lab, and she did a great job and continues to do a great job. We want to thank them. Bob Bauman, Helen Wong, Liz Sepulveda, Kerry Anito, Craig Hamer. All of these forensic scientists did a fantastic job, and we want to thank them. Again, they were in the house with our law enforcement partners, gathering this evidence meticulously, precisely, and without. This. I was thinking about this. This isn't a cast of hundreds. When you look at when you bring all this together, it's a cast of thousands. So we want to thank all of those individuals. Office of Chief Medical Examiner, City of New York, Brad Adams, Mark Desire, and Neha Desai. Brad Adams was the anthropologist. He identified the Gilgo Four, and he was the one who urged investigators to go back after the discovery of Melissa Barthelemy, which resulted in the discovery of the 3 other victims known as the Gilgo Four. Mark Desire is the assistant director of biology of the lab. He was our liaison. He made all of his people available to us. Ms. Desai, she testified for us in the grand jury. Her DNA analysis led to the identification of the Gilgo Beach Four. Again, she testified in the grand jury. A fantastic job. Our outside experts, mitotyping technologies, Gloria Dimmick and Jenna Manges. Gloria testified first in the grand jury. Fantastic scientist, fantastic person. Astria Forensic, Dr. Ed Green, Dr. Christina Valencia, Kelly Harkins Kincaid. Those scientists with Astria are at the very top of their field, and they did something revolutionary in this case, and they've set the bar high going forward, and we're going to be able to utilize this technology going forward to solve a great many cases. So we want to thank Astrea Forensics, and I want to tell you, if you think you're smart, you should spend a week with Dr. Green, and then suddenly you realize maybe you're not as smart as you think you are. At least that's the sense I got after spending time with all those great scientists. NYPD, again, they helped us with the cadaver search in April of 2025. We had individuals from their TARU unit testify in the grand jury with regard to phone calls made by the defendant. They helped us to attain records, missing person records involving in this case, spanning back years and years. Again, at a drop of a hat, even though it wasn't their case, they came in and helped us. Scarborough Police Department, with regard to Megan Waterman. The Megan Waterman case came in as a missing person case, and it went across the desk of a detective, Don Blatchford, who's here with us today. And Don, gathered the evidence and really did everything he could to try to locate Megan. And when the trail took him to Suffolk County, he didn't stop. He continued to help us in our investigation. He brought the Waterman family to Long Island for interviews and for court proceedings. He testified in the grand jury, and he's had a long, illustrious career in Maine. He's going to retire, but he held off his retirement to see this case through. And again, I talked about the Suffolk County PD guys who cared about these victims. Don Blatchford is another individual who cares about these victims, like all of the people in law enforcement. So we want to thank them. United States Secret Service, with the massive digital evidence in this case and their forensic science division, all of the massive amount of digital evidence, they helped us process it. We had their forensic science division, we recovered a Bounty paper towel off of the crime scene of Megan Waterman. They processed that and they compared that to the same Bounty towel that we recovered in the home of the defendant. They matched, and this was a memento that we argued the defendant kept. Would have been a key piece of evidence. So we want to thank the Secret Service for that. The telephone carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, Nextel, and AT&T. Again, phone records spanning back to 1993. We've got to get those records and evidence. Again, Rich Zachary's was integral in this, but they went above and beyond they went above and beyond for us because they knew this case was important. We want to thank them. With regard to the court staff, Judge Mazie and his staff, I want to thank them for their courtesies, and I want to thank them for all that they did in their professionalism. And this is a difficult case, and they handled it with aplomb. So, I'm going to turn it over to our partners, but just to clarify regarding the plea of guilt, the defendant has pled guilty to 3 counts of murder in the first degree pertaining to the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. And all of those 3 individuals were killed within 18 months between July of 2009 and September of 2010. That enabled us, the proximity of those murders enabled us to charge those 3 murder 1 counts. In addition to the sentences of that is life without the possibility of parole. With regard to the other 4 victims, they pled guilty to 4 counts of murder in the second degree. That's Sandra Costilla, Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Valerie Mack, and Jessica Taylor. Those sentences, 25 to life to run consecutive to each other and to the murder 1 charges. This defendant has additionally agreed to accept responsibility for the murder of Karen Vergata. And again, the sentence will be 25 years to life without the possibility of parole on the first 3 and 25 to life on the last 4, all of which is going to run consecutive. So we have 3 life without parole sentences and 4 25 to life sentences, all to run consecutive.
So he's never getting out, like ever. Okay.
So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our law enforcement partners. So I'm just going to leave with this. This case closes and another one opens. There are still, bodies on that beach. There are still bodies in Suffolk County. There's no rest for the weary. We are going to continue to work with our partners and to try to obtain closure for as many families as we can. Thank you very much, and we're going to call up Police Commissioner Catalina.
Thank you, District Attorney Tierney. The calm, serene, almost grandfatherly image that Rex Heuermann portrayed since his arrest was a lie. And quite frankly, an insult to both law enforcement, but more importantly, the families that had to endure that during every court appearance over the last 2.5 years. Today, he was exposed for exactly what he is, a sadistic, soulless, murderous monster. And thankfully, everybody today got to see that. I want to thank all of the members of law enforcement who were a part of this. I don't have as long a list as Ray, but most importantly, I want to thank the Suffolk County Police Department, both past and present. We have many retirees who came out here, participated in this case because, like Ray said, they cared and this was a part of them for a long time. All of our law enforcement partners, everybody who was involved in this task force really did, really an amazing, amazing job. So thank you to everybody who was involved in this. And to the families, no one can ever replace the lives that were taken from all of you, and way too often they were way too young. But, we hope that this brings some measure of solace to you. So, thank you, and thank you for all your cooperation.
Next, we'll hear from Sheriff Toulon.
I want to thank the district attorney and this entire task force for the hard work that they've done over the last 2.5 years. Today's plea delivers a measure of justice to families who have waited decades for answers after unimaginable loss. While nothing can bring the loved ones back, I am proud we were able to hold Rex Heuermann accountable. Again, thanking the DA and the police commission and all the men and women who worked tirelessly. I also want to thank my staff, to uproot an entire jail security system to accommodate an individual of this magnitude. Over the last 2.5 years, our staff has done a phenomenal job in our Riverhead facility where he's been housed, and also the staff that have been assigned to our anti-trafficking initiative. And since his arrest in 2023, my priority has been ensuring that he was safely housed in our correctional facilities because justice needed to be served in the courts and not in our jails. This responsibility is one for me and my officers who have taken very seriously. And I've spent my entire career in corrections overseeing some of the most notorious individuals, and what has been the most alarming is how ordinary Heuermann has been. It's a chilling reminder that those capable of horrific acts can often go unnoticed, and another reminder of how much great investigative work has been done to finally apprehend and have a plea today. Most importantly, today is about the victims and their families. You have endured profound loss and years without answers. We hope this guilty plea brings all of you some peace and closure. Our thoughts remain with you and your loved ones today and always. Thank you.
Decades to wait for this day, for justice, for these victims and their families. However, in my opinion, there's many more. There's going to be many more. I think Rex Heuermann is responsible for murdering many other people. He even bragged at one time that he used to go bear hunting in Alaska, and I'm like, oh, what else do you do there? You know what I mean? You just never know. So I hope that they can solve a lot of unsolved and cold cases going forward, over time, as District Attorney Ray Tierney said.
Next, we'll hear from Special Agent in charge of the FBI, Rafa.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Michael Rada, the Special Agent in charge of FBI New York Field Office Criminal Division. I'm proud to stand alongside Suffolk County Police Department Commissioner Kevin Catalina, Suffolk County District Attorney Tierney, Suffolk County Sheriff Toulon, to announce the plea of Rex Heuermann, the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Today's announcement highlights the importance of partnerships and perseverance. For decades, the families of these women have been left searching for answers and waiting for justice. This ends today because these agencies before you never gave up. The detectives, the troopers, the agents tirelessly chased every lead and left no stone unturned. In 2011, FBI New York began collaborating with the Suffolk County Police Department to find out who was responsible for these cold-blooded murders. Our office leveraged many resources, some of which have been described already, over the years to include our CAST, our cellular analysis survey teams, behavior analysis teams, evidence response teams, the surveillance groups, forensic and document lab teams at Quantico, and investigative genealogy tools to identify some of Heuermann's victims and help Suffolk County Police piece this puzzle together. The close coordination across every agency ensured that a monster lurking in our community was held accountable for his heinous crimes. While we'll never be able to fill the hole in the lives of the victims' loved ones, I hope that today brings a small sense of closure. Once again, I'd like to thank our state and local partners for their unwavering determination and investigative grit, and that includes the retired retired agents, detectives, and troopers that are here today. To see them sitting in that courtroom today in the back of that room was really awe-inspiring. To see their commitment to justice doesn't end when they hand in their badge and gun when they retire. Finally, thank you to the agents and analysts of FBI New York Long Island Safe Streets Task Force, the Special Operations Group, our CAST folks, Investigative Genealogy Program folks, and I'd really like to thank DA Tierney and your office for what you did and the resolve that you showed in this case. Just tremendous. Thank you all.
So, Rafa has just been appointed from New Jersey to head the New York office, and we thank him for coming today, and we're really looking forward to continuing our great relationship with the FBI and our federal partners. Last but not least, we're going to hear from the state troopers and Chris Casal. Chris Casal was with us. Then he went to I believe, Albany or New York City. He's back with us. We couldn't be happier, but he's going to say a few words.
Thank you, DA Tierney. I'm Major Christopher Casal. I served as the troop commander for the New York State Police.
I'm so sorry, I'm really going to pause. I don't know why, but now there's a little issue where I can't put the comments on the screen. Freaking YouTube's always coming up with something new. Coral and Dexter said, member for 12 months. You said, woohoo, 1 year. Hi, G Mods and Grizzlies. Happy Grizzlyversary to you.
Troop L. Today marks a significant moment for Long Island and for the families who have endured unimaginable loss for many years. The guilty plea of Rex Heuermann represents a measure of accountability in a case that has deeply impacted our communities. While this brings us closer to justice, it does not lessen the pain suffered by the victims and their loved ones. This outcome is a result of years of persistent investigative work and strong collaboration among our law enforcement partners who made up the Gilgo Beach Homicide Task Force, and I commend all of them for their dedication and extraordinary work on this case. It reflects an unwavering commitment to our mission to never forget the victims and to continue pursuing justice, regardless of how much time has passed. This case not only underscores the importance of coordination across agencies, but the role of advancements in forensic science, technology, and intelligence sharing. Today is not a day of celebration, it is a day of reflection, accountability, and remembrance. We honor the victims and stand with their families who have shown extraordinary strength and resilience. The state police and all the agencies you see represented here remain committed to serving our communities and to the continued pursuit of justice for every case that is entrusted to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now that you're back, we look forward to resuming our great relationship with you. Obviously, we have a lot of victims' families here. I believe that we're going to, Gloria Allred represents a number of those victims, and I think yes. They asked for Gloria to come forward and make a statement on behalf of many of the victims. So we'll call Ms. Allred.
I'm sorry for moving this picture around the whole time. It's so sad because there's so many victims, and this is just what he pleaded guilty to, right? That I just don't want like the chat overlay or anything to disrespect them at all. So I'm trying to make sure I put this in the right spot and that they are center stage, you know, that everybody remembers who these victims are. That Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to murdering, right? So, okay, so you can see their beautiful faces. Okay, so I'm going to put them here. Gloria Allred, here we go.
Thank you. I'm Attorney Gloria Allred, and I represent a number of the family members who suffered the terrible fate of the tragedy that was inflicted on their loved one. Today, Rex Heuermann, who thought he had the perfect blueprint and plan for serial murder, pled guilty to the murder of 8 young women. Some of these murder victims were young mothers just trying to earn a little extra money to support their children. because many did not have funds to go to college or get a decent job that would help them to provide adequate support for their children, they turned to sex work in order to help their families. It wasn't what they wanted to do, but it was what they felt forced to do because they had no meaningful alternatives. Some wanted to help their parents, their grandparents, and their loved ones. Some just wanted to survive in this difficult and challenging world. Little did they know that the defendant, Rex Heuermann, did not care about their hopes and dreams, or that they had families and friends who loved them. He appeared to care only for himself and executing what he thought was his perfect blueprint for murder. The evidence gathered and articulated in the prosecutor's response to the defendant's bail application demonstrated that the defendant had a, quote, planning document, end quote, utilized by Heuermann to methodically blueprint and plan out his kills. And those are quotes from the bail application. He also believed he had a perfect plan to avoid collection of evidence against him and to evade capture by law enforcement. However, what he had thought was his perfect blueprint for serial murder did not take into account the courage and the persistence of the murder victims' family members who refused to give up until the murderer of their loved ones was found, convicted, and sent to prison for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole. Many of the murder victims' family members became the voices of their loved ones, crying out for them not to be ignored and forgotten, and demanding answers and justice for them. Many of those family members whom I represent are here today. It was bittersweet for them to be in court and hear the defendant plead guilty to the murder of their loved one and the manner of their death. But the truth was important to them, and they heard it today. Last week, they were faced with a difficult question. Did they agree with the Suffolk County District Attorney's decision to agree to accept the defendant's plea of guilty in lieu of trial? Or would they have preferred that a trial take place so that they could hear all of the evidence that the prosecutor would seek to admit against the defendant? In a few moments, you will hear their answers to that question. And I will ask them to come up to the microphone, or if they would prefer to stay where they are, they can answer from there. In no particular order. Family members of Megan Waterman, please come forward and state your name and relationship to Megan Waterman. Elizabeth Meserve is her aunt. A little louder, please, Elizabeth. Or can you come up here? Thank you.
So my name is Elizabeth Meserve. I'm Megan Waterman's aunt, and I helped to raise her daughter. And on behalf of Megan, we definitely accept the plea.
Thank you. And also, we have with us Megan's daughter, Liliana Waterman. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Here.
My name is Liliana Waterman. I am the daughter of Megan Waterman, and on behalf of her and my aunt and all of our family back home, we do accept, and we are very, very thankful for everything that they've done for us.
Thank you. Family members of Melissa Barthelemy, please come forward and state your name and relationship to Melissa Barthelemy. Lynn Barthelemy, mother? No? Okay. Amanda Funderburg, sister?
it's nice to hear that the family members accept the plea. They're grateful for the investigation and everything that happened. I mean, imagine the trial. I think it would have lasted months. I think they were anticipating, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, something like that. So it might have even been longer, for all we know. Who knows how long the trial would have lasted? Now the families don't have to go through all of that.
I'm Elizabeth Bakeel. I'm Jessica Taylor's mother. And I am glad that this is over as far as him pleading guilty. It took a big chunk of stress off of me and my family.
Thank you. And you accept that the plea?
Oh, yes, I accept the plea wholeheartedly.
Thank you so much. And then we have Jasmine Robinson, who is a cousin of Jessica Taylor, victim Jessica Taylor. She okay? Family members of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, please come forward and state your name and relationship to Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Missy Khan, sister. Nicolette Brainard-Barnes, daughter. Dylan Haggett, son. This is Nicolette.
I am Nicolette Brainard-Barnes, the daughter of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and on behalf of my mother, I accept this plea.
Thank you. Dylan Haggett.
I am Dylan Haggett, the son of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and I accept the plea.
Thank you. Okay. So I think we have everyone that I represent. If there's anyone I don't represent who would like to say something, feel free to come forward. Okay. The defendant's plan to get away with the murders he committed was also unsuccessful. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay, I could actually just use this. Thank you. Somebody else. Oh, good. Just say your name, please.
I'm Diane Doherty, and I'm the mother of Karen's sons, Eric and Gary. And I just want to say I'm thankful that we came to a conclusion that brought peace to everybody. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, she will. Okay, good. Thank you. The defendant's plan to get away with the murders he committed was also unsuccessful because many law enforcement officers who participated in this massive investigation were so dedicated. We would like to thank each and every one of you who contributed to bringing the defendant to justice. We deeply appreciate you and your dedication to finding, testing, and preserving evidence for this case. The result today would never have been achieved without your hard work and sacrifice. Even if we cannot meet and thank each one of you in person, please know that your efforts on behalf of the families, loved ones, are respected and appreciated. We look forward to thanking as many of you as possible after the time of the sentencing in June. The journey to justice has been painful for each and every family member who I represent. In conclusion, Melissa Khan, also known as Missy, would like to share her feelings about this day and the almost 2 decades in which she has sought justice for her sister, Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Missy.
I just want, can I have my family behind me?
Of course you
Okay,
can,
perfect.
sure.
Thank you.
Would you like to use this?
We'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Hello? Okay. Hi, my name's Melissa Can. Everybody calls me Missy, and I'm the sister of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and this is my family. Well, some of it. First, I want to begin by thanking the District Attorney, his office, the detectives, the FBI, the New York State Police, and the entire task force. For years, they never stopped. They carried this case with determination and heart, and our family will forever be grateful. We are forever thankful for the work that led us here. Finally, a sense of relief. The guilty plea brings solace, and I like to thank everyone who had a part in that fight for justice. Thank you to our lawyer, Gloria Allred. I also would like to thank the media for continuing to keep this case in the public eye. Today is not about the person responsible. Today is about the women's lives who were stolen. It is about their voices, their future, and their families, the love that still surrounds them. They are the reason why we are here. 19 years, I lived in the space between heartbreak and hope. Throughout these years, I searched for answer, for truth, for justice. There were moments when the weight felt unbearable, but I never gave up. Maureen was never forgotten, not for a single moment. From the day she went missing until today, she has been carried in every breath, every memory, every fight for answers. This has been a long journey of hope that one day we would stand here and say her name with justice beside it. Today, that long, painful journey brings us to this moment. Our mission, our promise to Maureen, is finally met with accountability. For Melissa's, Megan's, Amber's, Jessica's, Valerie's, Sandra's, and Karen's family, I stand with you in deep love and understanding. No one should ever have to walk this path, yet here we all are, connected by loss, by strength, and the unbreakable bond of our loved ones. The bond some of us has created has been one that is unique in a sense that it did not form from a previous friendship or blood. It was created by trying to pick up the pieces of our world that had shattered in tragedy, and I am so grateful for us. To every family out there still searching, still waiting, still holding on, please do not give up hope. Even when it feels impossible, even when the years pass and the silence grow heavy, keep going. Your loved ones matter. They are not forgotten, and one day answers can come. Finally, to Maureen, the promise I made to you so long ago was simple. Sorry. I would never stop searching for justice for you. Through every year, every setback, every unanswered question, I carried you with me, and I kept that promise. And today, it has been done. Justice has finally found its way to you. Your voice was never silenced, your story never forgotten, and your life will always be more than the tragedy that took you. This moment is not the end, but a reminder that love endures, truth prevails, and hope never fades, because even in the darkest moments, justice will find its way. Thank you.
Oh my word, such powerful words.
The victims will not be answering questions. I call them the victims because they are also victims, even though they are family of murder victims. I can take one question. And if there are none? Yes, sir. Could you speak up a little, please?
Not much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what Rex Heuermann allegedly said? I don't believe that. Don't want to put the families through the trial? I don't think did he say that? If he said that, I don't believe him. I'm having a little issue with YouTube right now. It's only happened now. Okay, and I can't put your comments on the screen. I don't know why. But Jess Palafox, thank you for the $4.99 sticker. You said it's hard to hold back the tears. My thoughts are with the family. To the victims, I send each and everyone a huge hug all the way up to heaven. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. Some have dropped off. To the absolute champions that are still here with me, thank you so much.
I saw something on Facebook today that the New York Post is still calling our girls sex workers. Stop it.
I don't have a comment on anything he says. Perhaps the district attorney does.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah. So thank you, Ms. Allred. Thank you, Missy. Thanks to the victims. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Well, you know, I think traditionally a change of plea is when you know they plead guilty to every single count in the indictment. In this sense, you know, we are going to be dismissing 3 charges, so that is a plea deal. Obviously, he's getting the maximum under the sentence. So how you categorize that, I would leave it to everyone. Yes. So I know, Mary, you're going to get sick of hearing this because I say it every time. Doesn't matter what I think, it matters what I can prove. You've heard that before, right, Mary? I think that, you know, first thing we need to, well, there's a number of things we can do, but a huge step in moving that case forward would be to finally identify that individual. We're continuing to work with that, IGG, and hopefully that we can do that, but we'll continue to work that case. We'll continue to work all the other, unfortunately, many cases in Suffolk County. So. Again, it doesn't matter what I believe; it matters what I can prove. So, you know, I'll leave the belief and the conjecture up to whoever wants to do that. I'm going to, you know, continue to do what we do, speak through our indictments, and you know, we are where we are. But we're going to continue to work forward, and so gratifying to be able to provide closure for these families. Hopefully, for that individual and his family and the people who cared about him, we want that same closure.
I'm smiling because District Attorney Ray Tierney always says he only speaks through indictments. He's saying it right now, right? He's saying it right now.
Yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Oh, it most certainly is case law. Do you work for the defense? It is. We prevailed in the Fry hearing. It happens all the time. Not every time that you make law in New York State does the case result in a trial. So, you know, that is the existing law since that decision. You know, like we knew it would. Nuclear DNA from hair samples has moved forward. We're on even stronger footing than we were at the time of the hearing. So we feel great about it, and we're happy. And, you know, we're going to use that science. We're going to defend that science, and, you know, let's do it. We feel great about it because the science is most definitely on our side. Yeah, I think we wanted to synopsize, so we wanted to name the victims, right, because it's about them. We wanted, and we're talking, starting in 1993, ending in September of 2010, we have these 8 women, right, and all of the years in between. So I think it provided a context of this defendant and what he's done and what he pled guilty to. So it was important for us to do it in that way. And then with regard to the allocution, every jurisdiction, there are elements for murder or what have you. Those elements are slightly different, and but in every jurisdiction, you have to prove each and every element of the crime charged against the defendant. So, for instance, when you ask the defendant how old he is, that's an element. He has to be above the age of 18. So, it's really the allocution is really guided by the elements of the crime, and it has to be satisfactory to the judge. So that's just the way we decided to do it.
I'll just pause and complain for all of us as you are in chat and just say, come on, man, we can't hear the questions. Pass that mic around or what?
I mean, I think that's just the way we do it in New York. I mean, that's a standard plea, you know, so he had, you know, admitted responsibility, allocated to it. So that's that. We still have the sentencing, so we'll hear more on, you know, from that. Yeah, we're not, you know, like, we're not going to have individual investigators speak. Again, you know, we want to thank Trooper or Investigator Atai for the great work she did in that regard, and very emblematic of all the great work that was done in this case.
Are you still working with other jurisdictions on unsolved murders, and were any promises made and no further charges being brought against them?
So with regard to the no further charges, that pertains to the 8 murders that were discussed. That's it. So with regard to other investigations, those potential investigations are not covered by the plea in this case. So we'll just have to see what happens with, you know, see how that unfolds. But the plea and the coverage pertains to the 8 women that we were discussed in court today. That's it.
The way that District Attorney Ray Tierney answered that is like, you know, because we know they're investigating other cases, cold cases that could be tied to Rex Heuermann. The way that he just said that tells me that, oh, you might actually be fairly close to filing more charges for all we know. You know, we'll have to wait and see. Sounds promising.
Yes. You know, again, you know, what we do is, you know, when somebody wants information, we give it to them. And we share that information all the time. We've been sharing information. We'll continue to share that information. I think when people talk about, you know, now he's going to, you know, after sentencing, he'll go into CODIS, you know, I said this before, but I want to make clear, we have the ability as investigators to provide evidence in our case on a case-by-case basis. So in other words, if there's a case in a state and they want specific information about one of our cases, we could share it, and we've done that. Yeah, sure. Again, you know, I think that, you know, the FBI does such phenomenal work, but then you have, you know, the real work that the FBI does, and then, you know, the work you see on TV. So, you know, one of the many great units that the FBI has is its behavioral analysis unit, and that is, you know, that unit at one of its core missions is like a clinical role. In other words, they're going to interview the defendant, gain insight into his motivations and background as a sort of an academic and scientific exercise. So that's what that's about. They're a clinical. Those are clinical interviews. Those aren't investigative interviews. I believe that they're going to limit that to just the 4 corners of what he pled guilty to and try to gain insight. You know, so they could gain insight and knowledge going forward on new cases, and that's kind of what the FBI does.
It is amazing because I do know that before that Rex Heuermann's DNA couldn't just go into CODIS. There was some legal restriction about that, right? Now it can. Now it can. Ooh, so many more cases could be solved, right?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, it was a Ram Charger owned by him, and it was Sandra Costilla. No. You know, I was a federal prosecutor, and as a federal prosecutor, you have a lot more, I would say, sway with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and you could sort of dictate, you know, those things. In the state, you know, the state Department of Corrections does their thing. And so not only is there nothing in there, I don't believe I would really be able to do anything. Obviously, you know, so that'll be a function of the Department of Corrections, but no. Yeah, I mean, I think with regard to this, you know, again, you know, he's not serving less time. So, as far as that, it's pretty much the best we could do. But I think every single case you have, there's these discussions, and talking about pleas as a prosecutor, that's third rail stuff, because defendants have a presumption of innocence, they have a right to trial. So imagine if every time in one of my cases in my office, I said, "Oh, Smith, yeah, he's going to plead guilty. He knows he did it." That's third rail stuff. That's unethical behavior. So we don't talk about pleas, because it would be unethical as prosecutors, because we're impeding upon that presumption of innocence. So we don't do that. Number one. Number two, we don't have control over what a particular defendant's going to do. And in every single case, there's talk of pleas. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't happen. We prepare a case, we go forward, we see what happens. I don't think, until the allocution was completed, I didn't know whether or not this was going to go through. So you wait and see. I think people say, oh, it's going to be a plea. Well, maybe.
We don't know either, right? It's like, what? When Rex Heuermann indicated, when it hit the news that he's indicated that that he's going to plead guilty on April 8th, we were like, huh. But will he though? Will he though? He actually did. He actually did. That is actually a huge point though that we just spoke about, that his DNA will now go into CODIS. That's a big takeaway from what happened here now with him now pleading guilty, like convicting himself. Oh, now they can put his DNA into CODIS. Can you imagine how many unsolved cases might be solved? There's hope. There's hope, right? Okay.
No, I think I've been doing this for 30 years, and as a young prosecutor, you chase pleas. Every day you say, look, maybe we'll get a plea, maybe we'll get a plea. We'll call. It makes you look desperate. It takes you away from your preparation, so you go forward. And if the defendant decides to plead guilty, go ahead and let him plead guilty. But, it doesn't really factor into our mindset, because a lot of times you're absolutely sure that a case is going to plead guilty. It doesn't. Other times, you think it, and just the exact opposite. So you don't know, so you don't waste your time thinking about it. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the families. Is there a personal anecdote or a favorite memory that you can share about your loved ones?
So Mr. Allred just said that the families were not taking questions. So perhaps offline you could address that. Yes.
Just to clarify, can you please explain how the plea deal came about? Was there one already on the table, or were you contacted by Mr. Heuermann's attorney?
I don't really think it's sort of organic. It happens organically. What happens is you sort of go from talking about it and just going forward, and then at a certain point in time there was discussion with regard to Karen Vergata, and that's done in a proffer setting where the defendant discloses, but you can't use it against them unless they waive that. So once that happened, we began to think that certainly a plea might occur, but you never know.
So just to clarify, it was only after the Karen Vergata case was connected to Mr. Heuermann that there were discussions, like have there been a framework? I know you said it's always happened, but I just want to be able to pinpoint on.
Yeah, well, normally, say this was a robbery case, right? And there's a maximum of 25 years, and the person could get 10 years, right? So you're negotiating. All right, I think we could dispose of this for 12 years, or 10 years, or 6 years, or whatever it is. That's a normal plea. There was no negotiation with regard to numbers. So it was basically like, we'll continue to work this case. It comes a time when this defendant, and it's the defendant's decision, when this defendant wants to plead guilty, we'll go ahead and take it. But we're not discussing, we'll give him this or we'll give him that. So there really wasn't all those discussions. And I can tell you that, the reason why this case pled guilty was because it was the defendant's decision to do so. The defendant wanted to plead guilty. If the defendant didn't want to plead guilty, the defense would have taken the case to trial, and we would have followed along. But it was at a certain point in time,
followed along.
It was the defendant's decision to say, I'm pleading guilty.
So earlier how one of the reporters asked if it's true that Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty because he wanted to spare the victims' families from going through this whole trial. That's not a complete sentence, because when I look it up in all these articles, they say his defense attorney, that's Michael Brown, right, stated that Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty primarily to spare his own family, especially his daughter, and the victims' families from the trauma of a lengthy trial. Oh, there it is. Your own family. Ex-wife, daughter, and stepson. Probably his ex-wife would have said, we're already, well, I don't know if they're broke now. They were broke. Like, I could just imagine Asa Elarab just cucking him out and being like, listen, dude, we're already broke. We can't come to the trial for freaking months on end, okay? Just own up to it. I don't know. I feel like Asa would have had an influence on Rex Heuermann deciding, yeah, okay. Because, yeah, can you imagine? I really don't know how long this trial would have lasted. I don't think they ever indicated. It could have been months and months. It could have been 6 months for all we know. But that's why. Oh, that's what his defense attorney said. Okay.
No. Well, I mean, if you look at, I always talk about this, Mary, and we've talked about this, right? And I like to kid you, right, when you say, well, we're talking about a case in this jurisdiction, and you ask me, and I'll say, what does the bail letter say? And you say, well, your jurisdiction is the only jurisdiction that does bail letters, right? Like, so we've provided a tremendous amount of evidence, and the evidence in this case is primarily almost, the lion's share of the evidence was the phone evidence, the financial records, the information with regard to the witness statement with regard to Amber Costello the night before, the Chevy Avalanche, the DNA.
The planning document, the Google searches.
I think I said cellular phone analysis, and that's and of course the planning document and the mementos that were found. That's the case.
Literally newspaper and magazine clippings he had as well.
I think there's a tremendous interest in this case, but when you get down to it, the actual commission of the crime, there were 2 witnesses to the commission of all of those crimes. And unfortunately, each time the other witness is no longer with us. So they're just certain, we can't answer every single question because there are no eyewitness to these cases. I felt great. I mean, and the reason why I felt great was because I knew it would provide closure to the families. This is a tough forum for victims. The protections extend to the defendant, and it's a process that's tough on victims. So to go through an extensive trial would have been difficult for the family. So we're glad that we were able to spare the families of that, and that's what we're most happy with. So again, look at this deal, and you tell me what we offered and what we didn't offer, and I'll let you decide. I know what I think. Again, it very seldom matters what I think. So if we gave him a deal, then we gave him a deal.
Did I give him a deal? I really do like District Attorney's snarky attitude. Oh, well, doesn't matter what I believe. You think what you want to think. I don't know. What I think, which also doesn't matter, is that Rex Heuermann's defense attorney would be like, look, dude, because they filed this omnibus motion. Oh, my word, the document was huge. I'm actually still honestly going through it. There was an omnibus motion filed and then a response as well. And each one was like, I don't know, 180 pages or whatever, but it's so detailed. And they were trying their level best to get a whole bunch of evidence suppressed and all sorts of things, right? And I just think the defense would have just told him at some point, dude, like, really? I think the defense attorney would have said, don't put your family through this. Like, I know you care about no one else, but don't put your family through this. Think about your daughter, you know what I mean? And he's like, just plead guilty. You're going to get LWOP'd anyway. You know what I mean? That's what I think happened. Okay.
Well, so when I ran for office, and when I spoke with the victims' families before I took office, I discussed this task force. And I said, you know, if you look at Suffolk County, the history of this case, every time there's a new person on the case, prior to me getting there, you'll see they go out to Gilgo Beach, and all you guys follow, and they're walking along the beach looking for clues, presumably. I don't know what the heck they're doing. But it's a great media event, and it's a great opportunity to talk about all the great work they're doing and how close they are to catching someone. We did the exact opposite. When we came in, we wanted the one person who mattered, the murderer, to think it's business as usual. We didn't say, hey, it's a slow day. Let's toss Gilgo in the media pool, to sort of get some clicks. We purposely wanted everyone, especially the individual who committed these crimes, to go to sleep, because when we wanted to work our case, develop our case, and when we proved it, right, when we got that grand jury indictment, we wanted to simultaneously arrest him and execute a whole bunch of warrants, and if he was lulled to sleep, we would get additional evidence, and that's precisely what happened. So I am very proud for the work that we and the other members of the task force did, because how we envisioned it happening, that's what happened. Yes?
If you had to pick one precise turning point in the case that actually got to him, would it be the car, or what was it?
I'm sorry, I cut you off. I apologize for that. Yeah, I anticipated your question. There's I don't think there was one. The phone evidence, financial evidence,
that he was still buying burner phones. Still, the MO was still going, which again is why I say, what did he do between 2010 and 2023?
The mementos, the planning document, and the DNA evidence, right, off of those hairs. All of it is layered. So when you take it all together, really, really significant. And I think the key for us was, when initially we had, the avalanche. Well, that's great. Let's get more. We had mitochondrial DNA. That's great. Let's get more. We had cellular data. Let's get financial records to link that in. So more. You have too much evidence. Too much evidence is not enough evidence. We realized this was a significant case. These families waited years. So we were going to make sure that when we brought this case to court, it was going to be a very strong, powerful case. And I can tell you, due to the work of these great agencies and these great people, to my left primarily, some to my right, we built a great case. And the reason why we built such a great case is because at no time did we ever say, well, that's enough. We're good. Keep on going.
So I had a
Sure, I'm sorry.
So at the end of your opening statement just now, you said this case closes and another one opens, but the task force had asked for help in identifying some other remains found out there, and I think those are still unidentified. So how could this case actually close?
Well, I'm talking about the case against Rex Heuermann and that indictment, right, which he pled guilty to the murders of every single woman on that indictment, plus an eighth woman. That case closes. But any case involving an unsolved homicide in Suffolk County, those cases remain open.
And he's being looked at for other unsolved cases that...
That's not the way it works. We don't presume that he did or didn't do any more cases. We go to each case like we did with each of these women. We develop the evidence from those cases. We see where it leads us, and that's what we do. But a lot of other people in Suffolk County said, we think it's this person. We don't think anything. We go to the crime scene, we start at the crime scene, we develop the evidence, and we see where it leads us. That's it. When I'm ready to charge somebody, I will. But I'm not going to sit here and say, this murder, we think it's one or two of these people, maybe a third. We don't speculate. We work until we get the evidence to speak through an indictment. Sorry.
I like it a lot. Speak through indictments, okay? And not assume, and not speculate, and not have confirmation bias, right? Nice. Very responsible DA.
I don't mean to, but I think that that's the way you do cases, and that's the way we do cases. Yeah.
We've been waiting for word on the baby that was found. Obviously, we know that Andrew Dice is in charge of Tatiana Jackson. But Tatiana, the lady in York County, is there any word that this could be connected? Is there looking at for that case?
Yeah. So while
they're talking about Peaches and Baby Doe, and the arrest that was made in that case? That was the question now.
We were doing this case, right? Nassau was working on the case involving Tanya Jackson, and they've brought an indictment, right? And you know, prior to that, we brought our indictment, and Nassau gave us the space to work. We appreciate that. Now Nassau has brought their indictment. We're going to give them the space to work. So we'll.
So Tanya Jackson, known as Peaches in the media before she was identified, Tanya Jackson and her daughter Tatiana. It was Tanya's ex, Andrew Dykes, that was arrested. I do have a video on that on the playlist as well, going over all of that and those updates on the arrest and what this could mean, and or, you know, because I think everybody had assumed that all the bodies found along that Gilgo Beach stretch and just a little bit beyond, right, would all eventually be tied to Rex Heuermann. But no, I mean, John Bitrolf was also a serial killer in the mix there, and then with two of the victims that he was convicted of. So unbelievable, but there were many serial killers operating in the same area. Now Andrew Dykes, he's been charged with one murder. So that's the question they have, and then Asian Doe is yet to be identified.
We'll leave it at that. I'm sorry? We had evidence linking him to the commission of this case. Whether we would have indicted it, I'm not sure. Certainly, once he accepted responsibility for it, that concluded our investigation. But so we took the win and went with it.
Karen Vergata.
Okay, so I think we got to call this because I think the families have travel plans. But if you'd like, we could, offline, I could continue answering questions.
And that was the end of it. Got passed a note, wrap it up, and that was the end of the press conference. Wow, okay. Well, I'm really, really glad that we got to watch that together. I hope that you're glad that you watched it with me as well. This was massive news in this case where families have waited so long for justice. So I'm just going to make this just a little bit bigger for a second so you can see this again. These are the victims of the murders that Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to. Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, Sandra Costilla, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and Karen Vergata. So he wasn't charged with Karen Vergata's murder, but he confessed to it, pleaded guilty to her murder as well, and admitted during the allocution, as Catchless Rahul said, he was in the courtroom, that he strangled all the victims. So, justice for them and for their families. I hope their families feel relieved as well that they don't have to attend the trial. If you want to, I have one bonus clip to show you. Are you ready? Ready for a bonus clip? Hold on one second. There's always more. There's always something. Wait, I just gotta find it now. Is it this? Wait. This.
Any questions?
Nope. Also, Allred said something. She said something, and just based on what I read about what she said that everyone should focus on the victims and their families now.
Questions? My thoughts and prayers are with the victims.
Rex Heuermann's ex-wife.
And their families.
There you go.
Their loss is immeasurable. And the focus should be on them at this time and moment. Yes. I ask that you give some privacy to my family as they navigate through this very difficult time.
How did you not see what he was? How did you not?
What kind of insensitive question is that? How did you not see it? Wow, okay, all right. Gorilla with a question, damn. But I really like that Asa Allred today said the focus should be on the victims, because they had a little press conference yesterday, to be honest, pissed me off a little bit. And it was all because Attorney John Ray has filed lawsuits where one of the victims' sons is saying that Asa and her family. So Rex Heuermann's family should definitely not profit from any of this, meaning they did the Peacock documentary. So there's a lawsuit going there. But then right before Rex Heuermann was expected to plead guilty, meaning the day before, right? Then Asa Ellerup and her attorney, they had a little press conference. And I'm like, why do you have the spotlight right now? Just like, let's see what happens in the courtroom and let the victims and their families, let them have the spotlight, the moment they've been waiting for decades, right? So I'm really glad that she said that today.
See what he had done. You were living with him.
Sir, the district attorney's office has thoroughly investigated these crimes, okay?
Oh, my.
It has been proven.
You were living in the same house with him.
She was away. She was away each and every occasion. We've answered this 1,000 times, okay? You guys have the bail applications. You have the investigation. Yeah, that's it. There's no questions, okay? Thank you.
Okay, that question was the end of that. I do think it's an unfair, loaded question. I know people have the question, but I think it's unfair. Almost every serial killer's wife and family didn't know. Because serial killers, that's what I used to really like to study serial killers and wrote books on them and all that, right? Why? Because of how they compartmentalize their life. Ooh, my goodness. And most of the time, everybody who knows them had no idea about this other compartmentalized part of them that is just so depraved, so dark. They just had no idea. So yeah, anyway, sorry about that, Asa, but I'm glad she said, think about the victims and their families. Okay, so thank you so much everyone for being here with me to, watch the whole trial day today in the trial that I'm covering, which is the Tanner Horner trial happening in Texas. And thank you for watching this with me as well. I will certainly see you tomorrow for day 3 of the, today. I'll see you later today in my time zone for day 3 of the Tanner Horner trial. And I will put the link in the chat now and teleport you there. All right, everyone, stay safe. And I'm so glad for the victims and their families. Bye.